Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And today we're continuing to talk about chess, which you said last time is a game you don't really know much about,
Right.
and you don't know how to play and stuff like that. So maybe you'll learn something today. We're going to learn about the different pieces and how they move, and basically how a game of chess can be played.
Cool. Let's get started, guys. I'll read through today's article and then we'll be back to talk about, I guess, the strategy, how you play, but also some of these terms.
There are two sides in chess, black and white. Each side begins the match with 16 pieces. These are 8 pawns, 2 knights, 2 bishops, 2 castle-shaped rooks, a king, and a queen. The white side always goes first, and the objective of the game is to capture the other player's king. Few people realize that the pieces on the chessboard provide a glimpse into the power structures in Europe during the Middle Ages. Pawns represent common workers. These are the most disposable assets, and they are easily sacrificed. Bishops characterize the church, which was a wealthy and mighty force in Europeans' lives back then. Knights symbolize the loyal and honorable warriors of that period. As in real life, their highest purpose is to lay down their lives to protect more valuable assets like bishops, kings, and queens. Kings are the tallest and most important pieces on the board. Capturing or killing a king in the real world often leads to the collapse of an empire, and in chess, it signifies the end of the game. Perhaps the most fascinating story among all the pieces is that of the queen. In early forms of chess, there was no queen. Instead, there was a piece called the advisor, and it was somewhat weak. After the Middle Ages, prominent female rulers rose to power. Around this time, the advisor piece was eliminated, and the queen was added in its place. The queen could move an unlimited number of spaces in any direction, making it the most powerful piece on the board. This update reflected the success and influence of queens like Mary Tudor and Elizabeth I, and added to the already considerable drama of the game.
Okay, guys, we're going to learn about chess, what the pieces mean. This will help you and me, of course. I was telling Tom during the break that I actually have a cousin who designed a chessboard. He's an artist. That's his job. And it's beautiful, but it's not black and white. He made it out of wood, and he carved the wood pieces. It's actually a treasure. I don't know who's going to inherit it after he passes away, but what a beautiful chessboard. His family loves chess, but he grew up back east in Washington, D.C. It's kind of a popular game back there. So chess, let's talk about it. There are two sides in chess. You know that. Black and white. So we're going to be giving you a picture of a black and white chessboard. Each side begins the match with 16 pieces. I think in checkers you start with 32, but I can't remember. I haven't played checkers either for a long time. There are 8 pawns, 2 knights, 2 bishops, and 2 castle-shaped rooks, a king and a queen. What do all these pieces mean? We're going to talk about it. The white side always goes first. And the objective, or what you're trying to get, your intention, you could say too, the intention of the game is to capture the other player's king. So you can see why in our last lesson that when the one player captured the king, he said checkmate, and the game was over. So we're going to talk about that. So we have objectives in life. It could be a goal that you have personally in your life. Maybe this year you want to learn how to dance, ballroom dance better, or maybe you want to learn how to draw better, or sing better, or do something better. Maybe you have objectives that are given to you by the boss. There are goals that you need to accomplish for your team or on your team or for a particular period of time. Objective, of course, is also a word that is very, it's used a lot, but you could also use your intention. What was your intention when you started this? So the objective of the game, of course, is to capture the other player's king.
Like in the American Civil War, the objective of the Union was to conquer Richmond, the capital of the Confederacy. That was their goal, that was their objective, and it took them a really long time to accomplish that. But in any case here, yes, this is the goal or the objective of the game. This is what you want to do. You've got to capture the other player's king. It's kind of interesting because you don't actually capture the king, you just trap it so that it can't move, and then the game's over. There's not really any final move where you capture the king. You just trap it and it can't move. So there you go. It does sound pretty simple here. These are just the 8 pieces, or the different kinds of pieces here. 8 pawns, 2 knights, 2 bishops, 2 castle-shaped rooks, a king, and a queen. Okay, and if you look at them, you can pretty much tell what they are. Now, few people realize that the pieces on the chessboard provide a glimpse into the power structures in Europe during the Middle Ages. And this is something I've learned for today's lesson.
What?
I've played chess for many years, but I've never really known why we call it a pawn or a rook or a knight or a bishop. I kind of had a certain idea. Well, a bishop, isn't that like in the Catholic Church or something?
Yeah.
Isn't a pawn basically just someone you use for your own purposes and you sacrifice that person? Well, yeah, that's the role here, or at least this is the origin of the pieces here. We can get a glimpse into European power structures. We can kind of get an idea about how power worked during the Middle Ages. Let's start with pawns here. Pawns represent common workers. Yes, the pawn is the weakest piece on the board.
Right, so pawns just represented common workers, people who had usually had no land. The people who owned the land were aristocrats, and they would give some land, not give it to them to keep, but they would let these farmers farm the land, but then they had to give some of what they grew or earned back to the aristocrat. Yeah, so they were really the low class. They were the lower class, and there was no way they could ever get out of that class. They always were going to be in the lower class. So these are the disposable assets, disposable things, or things you can throw away. Something that's very popular today are disposable contact lenses. If you don't like to wear glasses, you can always get contact lenses. And nowadays, they're disposable. When I was very young and they were first invented, I remember they weren't disposable. You had to wash them and put them in a special treatment and heat them up. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, the pawns were considered disposable, and they are easily sacrificed in the game of chess. Now, let's talk about bishops. They're the ones that are kind of pointy, okay? And they do look like that hat that bishops wear in the Catholic Church. And so the bishops characterize the church. Of course, that's referring to the Roman Catholic Church that was very powerful in the Middle Ages until the Protestant churches started coming around. But in this case, the bishops characterize the church. To characterize, this is a verb here. It just means to basically represent something, to describe the nature or the features of something. So if you look at that piece, it reminds you of the bishops in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, sometimes if you're writing a novel or you're writing a short story, you might try to characterize the people that you choose to be in your plot by giving them different characteristics that people will remember. So these bishops, boy, back then, they were all powerful. Some of them were as powerful, if not more powerful, than kings. So it's kind of a different situation back then. They're still very wealthy, though. The Catholic Church still has a lot of money. So they were a mighty force or a strong force in Europeans' lives back then. Now, here's another piece, the knights. They're the ones who did all the fighting. They have the cool armor that they'd wear, the metal that they put on their body. And I love the knight's armor that I think I was on Nanjing East Road and I passed by a restaurant or something that had an old knight's armor outside. It was kind of cool. So they symbolize the loyal and honorable warriors. So to symbolize means to represent, right? If you're loyal, you are supportive of somebody or something, and you never are talked out of supporting them. You would never turn your back on someone. If you have a loyal friend, your friend never gossips about you. They support you in your decisions. Loyal friends are great. Now, if you're honorable, you do the right thing, no matter what. So if you're honorable, you have a lot of character, you have integrity, you could say. So honorable just means worthy of being honored or respected by others for things that you do. What's warriors mean, Tom?
Warrior, that's a person who fights, who engages in battle, like a knight, basically. So, yeah, we don't really use this word so much anymore. We use the word soldier nowadays, but back in the old days, we said warrior, and we often use that to refer to Aborigines or, indigenous peoples. If they're out fighting, we call them warriors, with a chief and the warrior and stuff like that. And that's what the knight represents. And remember, the knight is the piece that looks like a horse. Okay, we'll continue talking some more about the pieces of chess in just a couple of seconds. But let's take a break now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学，大家好，我是 Patrick 老师。今天是我们西洋棋介绍的第2天课程。好，那我们在第一段里面会先了解到西洋棋到底有哪些棋子。总共呢，其实有2大阵营，每一方都有16颗棋子。那到底西洋棋怎么样算是获胜呢？也在第一段的最后一句讲出来了。整个西洋棋棋局的主要目的就是要能够呢活捉对方的国王。第一段的最后一句 The objective of the game is to capture the other player's king。 这里请把 is to capture be 动词之后的这个 to 圈起来。这个游戏它的目的是要做什么？我们后面接的是不定词 to capture。 接下来请看到第二段内容主要是告诉我们西洋棋反映了中世纪欧洲权力结构。不过其实没有什么人知道，所以我们看到第二段的第一句开头 Few people realize that， 请把 few 圈起来，所以几乎没有人知道。其实从西洋棋的棋子我们可以了解中世纪欧洲的权力架构。这边我们请同学看到 provide a glimpse into 这个片语，所以从这些棋子我们可以进一步的去窥探 provide a glimpse into the power structures， 请把它画起来。再接着老师要请大家特别注意整个第二段其实有很多表示象征代表的字，因为第二段告诉我们这些棋子分别代表什么意思。 Pawns 也就是士兵，然后呢有 bishops 主教，所以我们分别把这些字后面的动词画起来。首先 pawns represent， 请把 represent 代表画起来。再来 bishops characterize the church， 主教呢就是象征着，就是代表着教堂教会。那 characterize 请画起来。再来 knights symbolize the loyal and honorable warriors of that period。 那骑士呢，它所象征的是当时忠心耿耿的这些战士，所以 symbolize 画起来。那乃至于最后第二段最后一句 it signifies the end of the game， 那表征着 signifies 请圈起来。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. back, guys. We're talking about chess. We're kind of breaking down the pieces and some of the ways you can play this game. For me, who is not very familiar at all with chess, it's a good lesson for me to learn more. We've got 16 pieces all together on that checkered board. Each side has 8 pieces. So we've got 8 pawns, 2 knights, 2 bishops, 2 castle-shaped rooks, a king, and a queen. And if you're using black and white colors to play the game, or your chess is black and white, the white side always goes first. So that's interesting. I don't know if it matters because I don't play chess, but sometimes it matters in sports whether you get to go first or not. The objective or the goal of the game is to capture the other player's king. The king is the most important piece on the board. So that makes sense. So once you capture the player's king, the other player's king, and that king can't move anywhere, you've won, and you say checkmate. I've noticed too when I'm watching a movie or TV that where someone's playing the game of chess, once they get that king, sometimes they knock it down. And then they say checkmate. And it kind of makes them feel like, whoa, I won.
Yeah, you're not really supposed to do that. But you just capture the king, you trap the king, and you've won the game. But yeah, to sort of rub it in, you might, take your queen or something and knock down the opponent's king. Ha ha, checkmate,
gotcha.
You lost and I won.
Yeah.
And so we did introduce some of the pieces here. The pawns represent the peasants, the common workers. They're the smallest piece with the little round ball on the top. And then we've got the bishops. They represent or characterize the church. It was wealthy and mighty at that time. And the knights, of course, symbolize the warriors who were loyal and honorable. And as in real life, their highest purpose is to lay down their lives to protect more valuable assets like bishops, kings, and queens. So, yeah, that's what the knights do. Of course, pieces have points, too. In a game of chess, the pawns are worth 1 point, the bishops are worth 3 points, and the knights are worth 3 points. But they're supposed to lay down their lives to sacrifice themselves for the bigger pieces, I guess, like the rook, which is worth 5 points. The queen is worth 9, and the king has no value because once you capture it, you've won.
Isn't rook a piece to represent some of the servants in the royal court?
Could be. Actually, I don't really know what the word rook itself means. It's just that piece that looks like a castle. And you'll basically only see that word rook used in the game of chess. I can't think of any other place where
There's
we
a card
use it.
game called Rook.
Okay.
We didn't play with face cards growing up, with the 4 symbols and face cards, because my grandma thought it looked like we were gambling, so we didn't do that. But Rook was another way to play card games, and Rook was actually a bird in that particular game.
Oh, that sounds familiar. Yes, the rook is a kind of bird. I think that was mentioned in Macbeth, actually. But in any case, the knight is supposed to lay down his life. You're supposed to sacrifice yourself for more valuable pieces like the bishop, the king, and the queen. And kings are the tallest and most important pieces on the board. And capturing or killing a king in the real world often leads to the collapse of an empire. And in chess, it signifies the end of the game. Yes, if you capture or kill the king, then you've won, you've conquered another country, and of course that could lead to the collapse of an empire. Like, what was it, back in 1989? We had the collapse of the Soviet Union for various reasons. The USSR just basically disappeared, and it just became Russia after that, the collapse of the Soviet Union. And in this particular case, if you kill the king, it can lead to the collapse of an empire, and that country will be conquered, or you'll have a revolution, or whatever. And in chess, it means or signifies the end of the game.
I just want to mention here, I'm in the dictionary, and rook is a black crow, a European crow. And it also is a verb. It means to cheat somebody or swindle them or defraud them. In chess, it just says one of the 2 pieces of the same color that may be moved any number of unobstructed squares horizontally or vertically, the castle. So kind of interesting. Yeah, so it's actually a large black bird. But if you use it as a verb, you're trying to cheat somebody. So rooks, yeah, it sounds like they can move around more freely than some of the other pieces.
Right, that's the rook, which we've been talking about. But again, if you capture the king, it will lead to the collapse of an empire. And it signifies, again, the end of the game. It means or indicates that the game is over. That's what signify means, basically to represent or to
make it known by a sign. You could use a sign to signify something.
Yep, the word sign is part of the word signify.
Yeah.
So it just indicates the end of the game. And let's talk about the queen now. Perhaps the most fascinating story among all the pieces is that of the queen. It's the second largest piece on the board. In early forms of chess, there was no queen. Instead, there was a piece called the advisor, and it was somewhat weak. I did not know that myself, that there was a piece at one time called the advisor, which basically tells the king what to do. But after the Middle Ages, prominent female rulers rose to power. Yes, indeed, we've got lots of queens coming to power then, so they thought, hey, you've got to have a queen in the game of chess. So around this time, the advisor piece was eliminated. They got rid of it, and the queen was added in its place. The queen basically substituted for the advisor.
The Middle Ages dates back to about 500 AD. To sometimes even as far as 1450 or 1500. Things were kind of rough back in the Middle Ages. I'm glad I didn't have to live back then. But because there weren't really any important or strong female rulers during that time or before that time, they didn't really think about having a queen piece. So in the Middle Ages, things started to change. And the advisor piece, as Tom said, was eliminated. They got rid of it. And the queen was added in its place. The queen could move an unlimited number of spaces in any direction, and it made it the most powerful piece on the board. Yeah, all of these pieces are limited by what direction they can move or how many spaces they can move. So the queen could do just about anything. This update, if you update something, you come up with a newer version of something. We often will get updates on news stories, or if you want to update your phone, you might download the newest software. Or maybe just buy a new phone because you want to update your phone. Your phone's too old. So this update is a verb or a noun, guys. It reflected or showed the success and influence of queens like Mary Tudor and Elizabeth I. They were quite powerful, and as time went on, the queens got more powerful. Look at Queen Victoria, who was very, very powerful. So Mary Tudor and Elizabeth I, that's how you say that, because of those ladies, we now have a queen as a piece on the chessboard.
Right, and yes, it does say the queen has an unlimited number of spaces, or it can move an unlimited number of spaces in any direction. That's not exactly true. It can move diagonally and up and down or left and right, but it cannot move like a knight moves. A knight moves 2 spaces forward and then 1 space to the right or left.
So a queen can't jump another piece?
It can. It can go over them.
Cool.
All pieces can go over other pieces. Oh, no, actually, the rooks and the bishops can't. It has to be a clear path.
Yeah.
But knights can jump over other pieces. And yeah, I guess you're correct that the queen cannot go over pieces either. Only the knights can do that because horses can jump. You get the idea.
Yeah.
And there you have it. Those are how the pieces move. And the rest is up to you to actually set up the board and play a game of chess with one of your classmates or something. If the game of Weiqi is too complicated for you, I understand Weiqi is more complicated than chess, but still chess can be a lot of fun, and it's still quite popular. I understand it's quite popular in Indonesia as well. When I went there, I saw lots of people playing chess.
Huh.
But there you got it. We're at the end of our game, and it's time now to say goodbye. So let's turn things over to the Chinese teacher first.
好，各位同学，在第一段的部分，老师讲到最后一句 ，The objective of the game is to capture the other player's king。这边 be 动词之后 ，to capture 用了不定词，其实在克漏字填充、克漏字选择很常这样子考，所以请同学特别注意到，我们在第二段还有一个地方也是 一样的文法概念。请看到 As in real life, their highest purpose is to lay down their lives to protect more valuable assets like bishops. 这边就如同在生活当中，这些战士、勇士，他们最高的目的 is to lay down， 也请把这个 to 圈起来，就是牺牲个人生命，保护更有价值的对象，包括说主教、国王等等。那再来，请同学看到第二段最后一句 Capturing or killing a king in the real world often leads to the collapse of an empire. 在现实的世界当中，国王如果被擒或被杀，会导致，请同学把 leads to 这个片语画起来，导致整个帝国就此灭亡 leads to the collapse of an empire. 而在西洋棋的世界 it signifies the end of the game. 在西洋棋当中，这 signifies 意味着、代表着这个棋，这盘棋就结束了。那接下来我们看到最后一段，其实让我们了解到西洋棋在最初并没有王后、没有皇后这个棋子，是后来才加进去的。从这一段我们可以了解到，这跟欧洲权力结构的改变有关系。好，我们一样看一下最后一段有哪些文法重点。首先是第一句 Perhaps the most fascinating story among all the pieces is that of the queen. 请同学把 that of 这个 that 圈起来。这个 that 是代名词，它所指的呢就是前面的 story， 就是关于呢所有的这些棋子最令人感到新奇、最吸引人的故事，应该就是王后这个棋子的故事。再来，请同学看到 After the Middle Ages 这一句 Prominent female rulers rose to power. Prominent 著名的、有影响力的、杰出的女性统治者崛起 rose to power， 原型是 rise， 他们崛起。那最后还有一个片语请注意 Around this time, the advisor piece was eliminated and the queen was added in its place. 请把 in its place 画起来。皇后呢被放到棋盘上，取代了原本的 advisor。 in its place 就是取代的意思。以上是我们针对西洋棋第二天课程的中文讲解，谢谢大家。
That is it for today's lesson. Thank you so much for joining us, and please, we beg you, we beseech you, please join us again next time for another edition of our program. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
See ya.